Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and a very warm welcome on behalf of all the SportsPro team to the Brand Conference. Delighted to see the room so full. This is SportsPro's day of debate and discussion on the very pertinent issue of the use of sport as a communications tool for brands, be they sponsors, rights holders, individuals, broadcasters, indeed anyone active in the sports industry. The aim of today is to drill down into how brands in all their guises can and should use the opportunities professional sport provides to maximise their growth, build awareness and connect with their audience. That path is not always clear, as we know, especially in a world of multiple platforms, instant and constant feedback and all sorts of methods of communication, and thousands of brands all competing in the same space. We begin today, though, with one major target, namely to get beyond some of the cliches that tend to dominate sport, sponsorship, and yes, the occasional industry conference. A couple of examples. We know that sponsors and partners these days are more than simply a logo on a shirt, car, perimeter advertising board, or website. We know too that social media is important to any major brand. Those are givens, and that's our starting point today. We're going to try and drill down a little bit deeper with your help. What are the most pressing concerns of the day for brand managers, rights holders, or teams? What are the pitfalls to avoid? How really do you engage an audience, and why doesn't it always work? And in 2014, exactly where do agencies fit into the puzzle? We'd be delighted if you were able to join in today, even if you're not here up on stage, either by asking a question, offering a comment, or by using the event hashtag SPTBC2014, which is very difficult to say, but a little bit easier to type, I'm told. Hashtag SPTBC2014, so get tweeting. One change to the advertised schedule I should tell you about. Unfortunately, Steve Lauletta from Chip Ganassi Racing, who is listed in the programme, can't be with us today due to injury. He's okay. But stepping in at the last minute, we're delighted to have with us Tom Hill, Manchester United's Head of Global Sponsorship Sales. And Tom will be part of our Teams panel at 4:15 today alongside executives from Sporting Lisbon, Atletico Madrid and London Irish. So it should be a terrific way to round off the day. So do stay for that. Before we begin the brand conference, it would be remiss of me not to thank the brands who are supporting us here today. You can see them on our very attractive boards here. Our gold partners, Whitestone International and the Clip Around the World race. Omnigon, our lunch partner for the day. Blinkfire Analytics, who are sponsoring the drinks reception later on. Looking forward to that. Our media partners, IMR, Press Association, Activative, I knew I'd do that, and 1080 Media TV. If you see a camera, that's them, so wave at it. Thank you too, of course, to our hosts at Lord's Cricket Ground here today, Marylebone Cricket Club. So, to business, and what better way to start a day of discussion at the home of cricket than with football, and with the man who has had quite the year overseeing, as he has, Adidas's World Cup marketing activities, a giant project straddling every continent, all sorts of platforms, and no doubt costing millions of dollars. So to tell us about how it all came together, what it all means, please welcome to the stage the Global Brand Director of Adidas, Thomas van Schaik.
Thank you for the intro.
Thanks for being with us, Thomas.
Thank you.
And let's start just with you giving perhaps as a sense of just how big the Adidas FIFA World Cup marketing operation was. Size, time frames, give us a sense of it.
Easy question.
Yes.
Yes. Well, the World Cup is a relatively big event in the sense that first thing to do is make sure that you have the right team and you have the right people supporting you as a brand. And that starts over 4 years out. Clearly we produce lots of product, so the development times of those are quite long, so you need to have a sense of where you're going before you start creating that product. It's a global project in the sense that different categories, different product categories are involved, different markets are involved, and all of that needs to be aligned. So a project like a World Cup takes roughly 4 years to pull together.
And tell us about the experience of Brazil in particular. World Cup's always special. When it's a World Cup in Brazil, does that add something?
Well, I think the World Cup really is the ultimate platform for our brand. It's not only a beautiful platform to showcase what it is that we produce as a brand and to celebrate our products, it's also a beautiful platform to celebrate what we actually stand for as a brand, which is the ambition to be your best, the ambition to excel. And the World Cup is one of the very few platforms in the world that actually combines both of those on a global scale. So that really does make it a perfect platform for our brand. And each World Cup is very different. It's the first World Cup I did for Adidas was in 2002, Korea and Japan, so that's quite a while back. And those events are very different from one another, and the local flavor and the local atmosphere, of course, determines the lens through which people experience and storytell around the World Cup. What we anticipated when we set out to create this campaign was that many brands would be tempted to Brazilianize their local story by adding a bit of yellow and a bit of green, a touch of samba, a hint of sensuality, and a bit of beach. Then Schaik, and then pour out a samba tune, and all of a sudden you'd have a World Cup campaign. And we consistently...
We saw a lot of those campaigns.
Well, we didn't want to do that. So to be completely transparent, we did do that during the Confederations Cup. And we had a match ball that was green and yellow. That was quite arty. It was lots of paint, lots of celebration, lots of samba. To get that out of the way. And we went completely black and white for the duration of the tournament in an effort to try and stand out, which I think worked quite well for us.
So you're within a World Cup campaign for a brand like Adidas, who's been associated with the World Cup since 1970. You have multiple moving parts in this. You've got the FIFA partnership, you've got deals with teams, you've got deals with individual players. At what point are you, in this 4 years of build-up that you talk about, at what point are you throwing all those things into the mix to come up with a sort of overarching strategy?
There's only one way, and that's at the very beginning. So amongst all the sponsors, we have a unique position in the sense that we're on the field of play, and effectively the audience is watching an Adidas product move over the field back and forth, which is a unique position to be in. And makes things relatively easy for us in comparison to other sponsors. The link to the event is so strong and so obvious that it's very difficult to talk around it, even if you would want to. On the other hand, there's also mild complications in the sense that even though our products are celebrated on the field of play, and it gives us a very easy thing to talk about, all of our main competitors are also on the field of play, which is a situation that our fellow sponsors clearly do not have. And then there is the debate about what is ambush and what is sponsor activation. It's very difficult for our main competitor to sponsor the home playing team, which represents a very significant investment, and then for us to expect for them not to activate one of their key assets. So you can hardly call that ambush, quite contrary. It's the activation of their sponsorship asset. So with all of the sports brands that are activating those different federations, with all of the fellow partners in all kinds of categories, and with all kinds of brands jumping on the enormous opportunity that is World Cup. If you actually have a brand, you would expect it to do something during the World Cup, whether you are producing frozen meat or dinky toys or fire extinguishers. Somebody's activating something around the World Cup. And on top of that, when you spoke about your social media efforts, of course, all brands are producing social media content, but it's not only other brands that we're competing with. When we're looking at hashtag adaptation, when we're looking at creating memes or things that people email around, we're not just competing with other brands, we're also competing with all the friends of all of our consumers who are creating all of these memes at the same time. So if you really want to cut through, you need to have something to add.
How much of a smile did you have on your face when you watched the Brazil semi-final? A half smile, a full smile, just uncontrollable hysteria?
No, well, I mean, we worked in Rio de Janeiro, and we were there for about 8 weeks in a social media hub called Posto Adidas. Lots of very, very smart people in one room, including our media partners. Twitter was there, YouTube was there, Google was there, providing us with real-time analysis. And of course, our Brazilian team is quite significantly sized and very passionately involved. And they were literally crying. So it was extremely weird for us because we had very strong emotions in the room. I'm getting emotional now. And it was an absolutely unique experience. And of course the mood in Brazil was quite emotional, because of all of the protests and the unrest, and we never experienced anything of that. But that night, there was this one moment where we thought, okay, is this, what's going to happen now? Because of the enormous emotions and the humiliation, frankly. It was also, we initiated a Twitter handle for the ball. The ball was called Brazuca. The ball had a Twitter handle. @Brazuca was the handle. By the time that the World Cup ended, we had 3.5 million followers for that handle. And Brazuca is the Brazilian name. So basically, Brazuca means Brazilian, like Dutchie means person from Holland. It's like colloquial, typically Brazilian, Brazuca. And the Brazuca is a female, so because if not, it would be Brazuco. So it's a her, it's a bull, and she was speaking. And because of her Brazilian roots, of course, there was very little that she could say. There's a German bull. She's produced or developed in Germany. She's played Germany against Brazil. Now, what does this bull say? It was such a bizarre situation that we were sitting in that room behind our typewriter, thinking, now what? And it was a difficult piece of copy to write.
Well, let's talk about Brazuca, and tell us about the decision-making process when it came to humanizing the ball and bringing it to life with this, as you say, 3.5 million followers, very successfully. Talk us through, at what point did you decide to do that? How careful did you have to be at moments like that when there's maybe some controversy or maybe there's a risk of alienating a particular set of fans?
Well, we come from the World Cup in 2010, where we had the Jabulani ball that was relatively received a lot of criticism and a lot of negative press coverage. And at the time, it was February 2013. I was looking at the Super Bowl. I started out in the NFL, so I'm still interested. So I'm up at night, I'm watching the Super Bowl, and the unimaginable happens. The light stops working in the Superdome. And as I'm following my Twitter feed, other than the Oreo case, which is widely reported and everybody knows about, you can dunk in the dark, there was a fan creating a Twitter handle called Super Bowl Lights, because the Super Bowl lights were off. And Super Bowl Lights generated 25,000 followers within 10 minutes. And I believe his third post, because the halftime entertainment was legendary performance by Beyonce, the third tweet of Super Bowl Lights was, "Only Beyonce can turn me on." And that got so many retweets so quickly that it went very, very poorly immediately after that, because it was just a guy on a couch making a joke, and it was not sustainable. So, after 15 minutes, he started saying things like, "Ask me questions," and then, "Why is your mama?" It's like all of a sudden it just completely blew up in his face. But there was a warning light, and then later that month were the Oscars, and at the Oscars, Anne Hathaway was wearing a lovely dress. But it was quite cold. So, as she was walking in and posing for pictures, a Twitter handle was created. We saw this happening, was Anne Hathaway's nipples, @AnneHathaway's nipples. And the third tweet of Anne Hathaway's nipples, the Twitter account, was because she won Best Supporting Actress, she won an Oscar that night. The third tweet was, we'd like to, the subline was, "We're just happy to be here." And the third tweet was, "We would like to point out that we won Best Supporting Actress without any support." And looking at that, we realized that no matter what we were going to do, there was going to be a Brazuca Twitter handle, whether we liked it or not. And because we need to manage our reputation anyway, we figured, okay, we might as well register it. And once we did, we started thinking about, the unique position that this ball was in. Of course, it would meet every player. It would be playing in the final. It would be meeting every team. It would be at the center of attention. And then we figured, okay, there's something there. And we started writing these heavy mission statements. Like I've met the feet of legends and I've touched the hand of God. Quite monumental statements. And it was a bit too lofty, a bit too grandiose, right? And we wanted it to be targeting a very horizontal audience. We wanted it to be funny because our campaign was about battle and it was quite dark. And we wanted something to be more lighthearted and more accessible. And once we got to this sort of funny tone of Bazooka, we realized that from the very, very start, all of our retail materials had the ball talking, love me or lose me. The film had we created a Brazoocam, which is a ball with cameras inside of it, giving you a 360 look. So the ball had a point of view and the ball had a voice. And all of a sudden we realized that we had something that could actually work.
How much of what you did with that Twitter account, how much of it was preordained, pre-planned, and how much of it was reacting to goals, matches, specific events during the tournament?
I'd say 50-50. It's a lot of anticipated content. We had more people thinking about what it should be tweeting and where we should be reaching out. There's a couple of examples I think in some deck here. Let me see where we end up. So the red cards one clearly was pre-written and was waiting for a red card to arrive. This is an example of just having a great Getty Images shot and writing a line for it. This was quite spontaneous, and literally 3 words got us 16,000 retweets. So trust me, goal was literally we sent out the tweet before the referee actually decided that it was a goal, which was quite strong. And this is an example of just random fun. We were having fun with this, clearly. And this was referencing a quote from the CIA that sent out their first tweet saying, "We cannot confirm or deny that this is our first tweet." And this was during the last 30 minutes when they were just hitting the goal and the ball wasn't going in. So there's a couple of those. And then we had people tweeting at the ball and this dialogue commencing where we had pre-shot photography that we then were tweeting back and forth between our assets and ourselves. One of the most striking tweets was from Justin Bieber. And Justin Bieber...
Always are.
They always are. Be a believer. But it was quite striking that when you talk about authenticity and the right place to be, and who are we as a brand and who are our fans, that the one where there was a lot of debate was the Justin Bieber tweet that got all the believers retweeting, but also I don't know what a fan is.
You're looking at me. I've no idea. Never heard of him. Let's talk about and you mentioned it there, the instant feedback that you're getting when you tweet something, when you post a video. Everybody is commenting on it. Within your base camp and your digital newsroom or whatever you termed it, how are you sort of filtering through and how are you measuring whether that is genuine engagement with the brand or just, as there tends to be on the internet, a lot of nonsense?
Well, there is. So it is all about objective setting, I guess. What are your KPIs? It is all about a clear division of roles between what you do on a global level and what you do on a local level. And with an event the size of the World Cup, it was more about volume and cut through than it is about the quality of the dialogue. Of course, the dialogue is there, and of course, that community management doesn't die. but with the amount of interaction that you are setting out to achieve, you want to be the most discussed brand of the most social event in history, then there is going to be compromises made. And we just simply could not, we did not have the manpower to engage with each individual tweet or post or comment. So it is about KPIs, monitoring those and adjusting what it is that you can adjust in real time, producing what it is that you can predict is going to be relevant the next day. And it is about pre-producing an enormous amount of content in a high enough standard, against a high enough standard, literally a year in advance, with all of the assets that you have at your disposal.
If Adidas had decided not to do any of this, not to do anything online in and around the World Cup with its marketing, you've still got the ball and you've still got the advertising around the pitches. But if there'd been no digital element to this at all, can you measure what the impact would have been? How much different the final result would have been for Adidas in terms of, because ultimately this is all about growing the business and selling more product.
Yeah, so we went into the World Cup with 3 objectives. It was first of all a sales objective, the 2.2 billion that I think we will announce we have achieved. Then it is about the Net Promoter Score, brand momentum and purchase intent, which we measure consistently. And then the third objective was to evolve the way in which we market the brand. And it's especially that evolution towards a more social media driven brand that it is that you're describing. So clearly objective 1 and 2 would have been identical no matter what. So yes, I think we could have set our KPIs and deliver against them without a social media activation.
And how closely are you looking at what other World Cup partners are doing, at what Nike were doing, or were you absolutely trained in on here's the Adidas project, here's what we want to achieve?
Well, it's the most competitive media space ever, I think. Everything is communicating, and the beautiful thing about having a competitor like the ones that you point out is that you know they're going to be great. So it doesn't matter, right? It's like instead of focusing on your competitors, we tend to focus on our consumers. And it's clear that everybody has, I mean, if you think about the individual sponsors of the athletes, the sponsors of each federation, the sponsor of each confederation, and the sponsor of FIFA, the whole sponsor family, and then everybody that's joining in. It's like there's so much to defend against, it's almost, undoable. So keeping focused on your own story and ruthlessly editing whatever it is that doesn't fit into that, I think is the main departure point.
Let's talk about the individuals, and in fact one individual that you work with, a chap by the name of Lionel Messi. And if you haven't heard of him, you probably have come to the wrong conference. But you might not be aware of Team Messi. And yet this was one of the sort of fundamental elements, and continues to be one of the sort of fundamental elements of what Adidas is doing, particularly with regards to community.
Yeah, we created Team Messi about 2 years ago. And Team Messi is a community of in celebration of everything Leo Messi, which is founded and grounded and activated by Adidas. It's predominantly social. Leo Messi on Facebook has created a community on Facebook with 75 million followers. And Team Messi has about 6, I believe, at the moment, 1 million on Twitter. And what we found was when we were activating initiating dialogue around Leo through our Adidas football handle. Let's take the Clásico as an example. Barcelona was playing against Real Madrid. Then, as everybody teaches you, you would ask a question before the game. Oh, it's the Clásico. Who do you think will win? And then, people would say, I think Madrid or Barcelona. Somebody would then end up winning that game, and we would say, oh, it's amazing. Leo Messi and Xavi did it again. Or we would say, oh, it's amazing. Gareth Bale and James Rodriguez did it again. And we were in a position as a brand where we couldn't lose anymore. And if there's nothing to lose, all victory is meaningless. So what we wanted to do was choose sides and say, whatever's going to happen, we're with the little guy. We're with Leo. Always with Leo is one of the hashtags that we are promoting. So when we chose sides and said, whatever's going to happen, we are with Leo, all of a sudden the community got the credibility and the support that it was so in need of. So when you look at segmenting your social media audiences within the Adidas football community, there was a place for a more horizontal handle that is @Bazooka, but also a completely dedicated handle around the most discussed player of the World Cup, which was Leo Messi. And that has worked enormously well for us. Leo Messi is our most commercial asset. So we have extensive product ranges surrounding him. One of the nice things we did during the event, it's always his birthday on the, well, it's always his birthday on the 24th of June. Mysteriously enough, you know. And this was during the World Cup. So what we did was we, without telling him, we made a birthday boot for Leo. Very colorful.
Made of cake.
Well, we have done that as well.
Okay, right.
We have done that as well, but that's so old school. That's beautiful. That's actually.
I'm a traditional guy.
Yeah. No, it's like this is actually a classic in the company. This was in Vienna,
right,
where during the Euros, Zidane came to visit, and he is our Predator, Predator ambassador, and he was staying at the hotel Schaik, which is famous for its Sachertorte, and we actually did do the classic Predatorte. So it was a Sachertorte that looked like a predator, and the chef of Schaik came down and actually handed Zidane the cake. It was such an incredibly awkward picture that there was a top 10 list of awkward pictures in football released last week, and the Predatorte made the list. So, but anyway, that's a different topic. So we made a colorful shoe for Leo Messi, and we released it on the day. We presented it to him. He posted it on his Facebook page. He wore those boots only during the practice on that day. And on that day, his birthday boots were sought after on Google 5 times more than the goals. So clearly, producing a pair of boots takes quite a long time because they need to be top quality boots. They can't be a thrown away product. He's the best player in the world. If he would get injured, it would be catastrophe. So they need to be good, and we needed to produce those boots like a year in advance. So about, it's going to be anticipated. It's going to be before the 3rd game that he's going to play. We would imagine he would win game 1 and 2. We wouldn't have done it if we wouldn't have won game 1 and 2 because he would have been out. So there's a lot of moving parts to keep in mind, but one of those activations actually worked quite well.
Let's open it up to any audience questions. I'm sure there must be somebody who has a thought for... we've got a hand waving over here, and there's a microphone just making its way towards you now, and it's in your hand.
Are we working? Yes.
We're working.
Good morning. Congratulations on your World Cup achievement. I believe you were voted the most successful partner recently for the World Cup. Could you possibly compare in terms of a vehicle for activation, the Olympic Games and the World Cup? Can you do some kind of contrast and compare?
Absolutely. They're very different events and very similar. So the whole world is focused on this one event, and everybody is debating it. It's where the best in sport meet the very best, and that's what makes both events a natural place for our brand to be. So it's where we have an ability to celebrate what we make and celebrate what we stand for as a brand, the ambition to be your best. Rule 40 complicates things. Rule 40 of the Olympic chapter means, I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the lovely rules. It prevents you from actually activating athletes in any commercial way, or at least limits it on all kinds of things. The beautiful thing about the World Cup is that everybody is watching the same event at the same time, the same players at the same time. The Olympics are very compartmentalized. So of course the UK is crazy about Team GB, and of course Jessica Ennis was the queen of the London Olympics, and she was amazing, and did very well. But in Korea, nobody cared about Jessica Ennis. They all cared about their fencers and their wrestlers, who were amazing in Korea, and that was the debate. I think it is relatively typical that the most tweeted event of the London 2012 Olympics was what?
Some help from the room?
I mean, you would hope that the world would say Usain Bolt, who was legendary, but I believe it was the performance of the Spice Girls.
Well, it was a hell of a performance.
It was, no, well, let me at least say this. The opening ceremony and the closing ceremony were the only times in my life when I wished I had more eyes. They were absolutely amazing events, and rightfully igniting enormous conversation, so huge spikes. But those are the only times, in combination with probably the 100 meters, where the whole world is watching the same thing at the same time. So when you're looking at capitalizing on conversation or presenting a lens through which, as a brand, or consumers watch such an event, you do not have this singular view. Some people are watching rowing, others are watching wrestling. So that is a big difference. On top of that, from a product point of view, from a product category point of view, it's typical for Adidas. We launched for Sochi a new pair of luge shoes. Luge is where you lay down on a sled, your feet first, and you go with the speed of light through this ice channel, right? Mysteriously enough, we don't sell an enormous amount of luge shoes. Whereas we do sell roughly around 14 million bazooka balls. So there's a very big difference in trying to make your products famous or celebrating your key products. This sense of national identity is, the World Cup is not about football, and the Olympics are not about sport.
So is for the Olympics, do you compartmentalise your budgets more on a global basis, and the World Cup is more centralised? Is that
yes,
fair?
Yes. So I mean, the Olympics are complicated for a sponsor. First of all, there is no parameter boarding. There is no branding, basically. One minor complication for us is that there are no stripes. Stripes are not at the Olympics. We were the proud partner of Team GB, and our UK team did an exceptional job with their Take the Stage campaign, which was a hashtag that was widely adopted and actually got filled with meaning, and in more ways than one, Great Britain actually took the stage and delivered an amazing games. But the hashtag Take the Stage, we didn't activate anywhere else. We didn't activate outside of the UK. It was clearly a UK-only activation. Does that answer your question? So yes, we do have, well actually, we did have a different hashtag for the home nation this time around. So the Brazilians were the only country that were not adopting the all-in hashtag, but went with tudo or nada. They went with a Portuguese language. And the Bull also tweeted in Portuguese and English.
Okay, a tiny final question. Which of the two events, in which the two events was your budget the largest?
Definitely the World Cup.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Time for maybe two more if we're quick. Maybe we'll take a question over here and then one over there.
Thanks. Hi, Andy Westlake from Fast Strike. It's a quick question about the migration of your Twitter audiences. So you've got 3.2 million followers for Brazuca, which stopped tweeting in July. You try and migrate them to Adidas Football, which currently I think has 1.9 million followers. Was there a consideration given to Brazuca continuing to have a voice after the World Cup? And how do you manage to switch the Brazuca followers, of which there are many still, to some of your other channels? Because there's clearly an opportunity, seems like there's an opportunity being missed there.
Clearly it's been debated. Once you have such a successful handle, what do you do? Looking at the audience numbers and analyzing who those people are, we have decided against making that Brazuca handle, for instance, the Champions League ball handle. It would be easy for Brazuca to say, hey, by the way, I've retired, my nephew will now start tweeting, he's the Champions League ball, see you later. But if you look at who those people are, then we wouldn't be doing them much of a favor. And we felt that we also wanted to be responsible and not greedy in a sense of luring people into a handle that wasn't going to be what we said it was going to be. So whilst I'm not saying that we will never reignite a handle for a ball, we did want to make sure that we gave it the space that we felt it deserved without taking advantage of the opportunity that was clearly there. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Maybe just time for one more, if anybody has one. Oh, we've got plenty of hands up. He's going somewhere else. Thomas I know is around for a little bit, so I'm sure there's an opportunity to ask him your question, but let's have one more from right at the back.
Hi, I just want to say congratulations on the World Cup. It was a fantastic effort. I look after our sports PR for Twitter in the UK, so I kind of was along the way pitching out the Brazuca follower growth story, so I kind of know all the stress that you went through on that kind of front. What I wanted to ask you was more about kind of looking at the brand from a more of a reputational point of view than commercial. The whole Luis Suarez thing obviously was all blew up a bit. That's an understatement. What were your thoughts about it? How did you guys kind of manage that? I know obviously he's now going to stay with Adidas, but was it the sort of thing where you kind of had to think about how you managed that from a brand point of view, or was that purely him and his agent? And how did that all kind of play out for you guys?
Well, how he handled it is clearly him and his agent, but he was a very prominent part of our campaign. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the sign that we had at Copacabana, where he was opening his mouth, more or less screaming, right? It was an image, and that turned into somewhat of an internet meme where people were putting their arm into his open mouth and posting that. It's quite interesting. If you Google Luis Suarez Copacabana, you'll find like 200 of those images of fans posing with him biting their arm. We did leave the site there for about 2 days. To not come across as like we were panicking, because we weren't, but we also didn't want to be seen, we also didn't want to be seen as celebrating or taking advantage of a very unfortunate incident. And the most bizarre thing, I think, is that I'm personally absolutely convinced that 2 seconds before Luis Suarez bit the guy, he didn't know that he was going to bite him.
You would have liked some warning.
It would have been great, yeah. I mean, it looked like, the advertising, this gentleman in front of us just opened it. It's like the advertising looked like we knew. Clearly we didn't. So we did adjust our tools. We did adjust some stills. We did react, and we did have extensive internal debate. And there were many brands that were taking advantage of the opportunity with regards to whether it was Nando's, who did something, McDonald's Latin America did a simple tweet, many activations, but we didn't, because it was a sensitive topic, clearly. Yeah.
Final question, very, very quickly. You're signed up at least through the next 4 World Cups, so how are plans going for the 2030 World Cup?
Well, the bidding process is about to start now. So no, it's a lovely event. I mean, we have been sponsoring the World Cup since the 1970s, but have been involved much longer than that. And it is where the very best in sport meet the very best. And I think our brand is firmly committed to supporting the event, because it's where the best in sport meet the very best, and it's the natural platform for our brand to be.
Well, Thomas, look, thank you for kicking things off for us today, or being first into bat.
Pleasure.
And please join me in thanking Thomas van Schaik.
Thanks.